Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, um, and welcome to Blather 218, Cosplays in Vogue. I know, we'll explain in a second. First, the notices that I don't want to miss again. We're coming to you through Quad Verum TV in IDIOCY.com. This is our channel, and you are more than welcome to join us. In IDIOCY is about the only way you're going to see these videos in complete form, unlike YouTube, and on demand whenever you want, unlike Twitter. So come over here. The link is right there or right there, whether you're watching in Twitter or in YouTube. We're, of course, doing this in Twitter in 3 timelines: my own, the Blather, Quad Verum, and Thomas Victor's, the Thomas Victor, which, as you know, Thomas, I've hijacked, and I pretend to be you and use it for my own benefit. And if you have any problem, you can discuss it with the single-digit IQ idiots who think that. And
whatever you say, Saul. Yes, Saul. It all sounds great, Saul. I believe you, Saul. Yes, Saul.
hypnotizing me. You know, how can you claim to have respect for a man and in the same sentence believe that he's a weak-minded shithead being controlled by that nincompoop? How the fuck can you put the two of them together in one head? I don't know.
Well, a lot of people never put volition. They never give individuals volition, like criminals. Criminals do what they do because whatever. It's never volition. The Iranians do what they do. The mullahs do what they do, because of whatever. It's never volition. And the fact that I'm here out of my own volition is never taken into account. And, that's very insulting. But in the end, it doesn't matter because, as people should know by now, I don't check my Twitter timeline. I said when I made my one and only post on there about the upcoming war between Israel and Hamas, I pointed out that the civilian casualty numbers would be inflated beyond all reality to the point of hallucination. And then I said, I'm not going to read any responses. I'm not going to. I don't do social media anymore, and
But Thomas, we miss you here.
Okay, I don't do social media because it didn't work the way I wanted it to work. I wanted people to pick up the ball I gave them and run with it. And a handful of only women did that. And for almost everybody else, I was some kind of sickening guru. And every day it was like, tell me what you think about this. Tell me what to think about that. And I don't like that. I don't like having, even the term followers. That's a scary term. And so,
I like subscribers better.
Subscribers, yeah. So I got kicked of social media in 2018, and I was banned from all existing platforms. I tried Gab, and immediately I had Nazis coming after me. And so when I pointed out to the owners that, hey, look, here's a death threat, they said, well, just ignore it. It's freedom of speech after all. So I said, well, Gab's not for me. There was another one that's now deader than Julius Caesar. What was that one called?
Getter.
Getter, yeah. I tried Getter.
Yeah, that one was born dead. And I remember, too, before I finish with the introduction, after you had that encounter with Torba, the God guy, who's now having some kind of religious, mystical flare up. You know, he's gonna be, the new Messiah or something. They tried, they abandoned all of their multi-billion-dollar projects and uh, went to Mastodon, to a Mastodon instance. And they advertised that one of the advantages of the Mastodon instance was access to us. And it took us, what, 3 days of the onslaught of these savages to just shut off the door.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you join a platform that doesn't believe in any kind of, I mean, they claim that they took things seriously, but they didn't. Not in my case.
No.
And I had people warning me, saying, "Look, these are the buddies of the guy who shot up the synagogue, and they're planning on paying you a visit." And it was like, okay, I'll leave. I don't care. It's not. I mean, I had the FBI come knock on my door because some washed up actress pulled strings, and when they realized that they'd been had, they went and gave her a stern talking to, and it she had a come to Jesus moment that lasted a few years, and then now she never really went back to what she was doing before, but I have no doubt that after Trump is reelected, she'll do it again. And
listen, there is no telling what she will do for $500.
yeah, I mean, it's just
at least, being a talking moron in social media doesn't involve sucking everything.
Well, I do understand that Twitter under Elon Musk is much. I mean, there's a lot more information getting out that wasn't getting out while under Jack Dorsey.
True.
But if you become a target, I mean, the best way to use Twitter is to just read other people's posts, or get news, get links to news sources and things like that. But the second you start expressing opinions that certain people consider double plus ungood, then you're in trouble. And
remember, in Elon's era, I was suspended twice.
Yeah, and
the mass reporting still works.
It still works, and he didn't clean house completely. So the people who oppose, who live to silence dissenting viewpoints, they're still there, and
active as always.
Yeah, and the one good thing is the community notes. Those are great because they hit almost immediately, and they take the wind out of tons of people's sails, and that sort of thing wasn't allowed before. But it's just, I mean, I don't do social media anymore. I'm writing books. I'm repairing my old photo collection. There's a lot.
You don't want to make me cry now, do you?
Well, I just don't want to. I mean, it was a real time sake. Remember, I was doing tons of original research and all of that. And
to be fair, I kind of miss it too. I mean, granted, I have an advantage others don't, of having these conversations with you on the phone or whatever, and I get quite a bit of your biting observations. And I do miss some of the stuff that I never thought to research myself.
Well, it's. I mean, things are way different in the sense that okay, the current American administration is a worldwide joke, and
Is the king of cosplay.
exactly. Just before you finish,
He's just pretending to be a president.
yeah,
Let,
before you finish,
let's go back to the introduction.
yeah, okay, finish that, and then I'll tell you something.
Yes, please make a note. I don't want you to forget
Hmm?
because we're getting old. What the fuck, It's like me. Fortunately, my memory is still okay. Knock on wood. Who's there? Yeah, yeah, I always do that. Um, Cosplay. Why the hell did we call it that? And I'm gonna beg your patience for this. And by the way, YouTubers, see if you follow this link because we're gonna get out of YouTube at about a half an hour mark out of 3 hours. Everything today, since you decided to speak of the maladministration of the senile moron, everything is a masquerade. We have morons who pretend to be students, activists who pretend to be faculty, criminals who pretend to be prosecutors, say Jack Smith, brainless twerps who pretend to be president, and everybody pretends to be a Muslim just to upset their grandmothers. It is the triumph of symbol over substance, the funeral of meaning, the death of common sense. In Biden's America, nothing has to have meaning, make sense, or transcend. College degrees are given out like candy. Debts do not have to be repaid. Well, wait until the working stiffs catch the meaning of that. And nothing needs to be true. Hey, we don't care about facts, we care about truth. That's what fearless leaders said not too long ago. We can be whatever we want at any time. This whole thing, Thomas, reminds me of Umberto Eco.
Hmm?
And Umberto Eco, other than the author of some wonderful historic flavored novels, uh, I always loved it because he had characters speaking a variety of languages and he never translated everything. So if you're a reader of his, you better understand those languages or know how to find a translation yourself. But other than that, he was a professor at the University of Bologna and he was one of the world's foremost experts on semiotics. And I remember him talking about what the hell is semiotics? It's the only science where its practitioners still have not reached an agreement over what the crap they're doing. They've been discussing for 3,500 years. What is semiotics? I don't know. What is to you? What is to me? Is a specular image a symbol? By the way, semiotics is the study of symbols and their meanings. Is a specular image a symbol? For those of you out there, not for you, Thomas, the specular image is the image of yourself reflected in a mirror. Is it a symbol of you? Not really, or not for half of the people studying this, because a symbol, to be a symbol, does not need the presence of the idea object symbolized. You can remove it to another location, and wherever you see it, that's what it's going to mean, whether it is in the presence of the idea, in the presence of the object, or not. The American flag is a symbol. It symbolizes what? Well, it symbolizes the grand total of the ideas and concepts of our founding fathers who give America its unique identity in the world. Everything else, well, yeah, for a soldier, it symbolizes his fallen comrades who fought for that symbol, actually, they fought for the ideas, not for the symbol. When you have symbols and people don't remember what they represent, they become divorced from any meaning. You have what it's called the semiotic phenomenon. Semiotic phenomenon is a symbol that represents a something that nobody remembers what the crap it is. America is becoming a semiotic phenomenon. Everything is full of symbols. Nobody knows what the fuck they mean. We're going to get into this later, but you've seen those students praying as Muslims, right? Like the ones in the video?
Yeah, women.
Okay, women showing their skin and their hair. They would be hanged from a post. In Tehran, they would be hanged from a crane.
Yeah, they're play acting. They don't even know what the hell they're doing.
They don't even know what they're doing. And the thing is, the one that really got me laughing to the point of needing oxygen was the students at UCLA praying as Muslims in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you morons, you're supposed to be facing in the general direction of Mecca, you idiots. If you're in a circle, one is facing Mecca, the rest aren't.
Yeah, no, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know anything about Islam. They don't know anything about Gaza. They don't know anything about Hamas. They don't know anything about anything.
No, and they have no idea of the meaning. They wear a keffiyeh. What does it mean? I don't know. There is a flag. Why is it green, white, and red? Pray tell. Fuck if I know. You know, there is a complete divorce between the symbol and the idea represented. And the same thing with everything else.
Yeah.
But go to your point. You took a note on it. We've done the introduction. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, today I was watching a YouTube video. It was going to be half an hour about the British Challenger 2 tank, which is their main battle tank. They're in the guy is a military historian, and he used to be really funny, and then he started, as his audience grew, he started taking himself more and more seriously. So he was explaining how the Challenger isn't fit for Ukraine, and that the British, they sent 20 Challengers to Ukraine to set the precedent, so then Germany and the United States would send more tanks. And because as you recall, the Germans actually said, we're not going to do it until somebody else does it first.
Yes. First they said, we're not going to do it. We're just going to send helmets.
Yeah, exactly.
Then they said, we're not going to do it until somebody else does it first.
Right. And so we sent 31 Abrams, which is
nothing.
And you know, now the Leopard 1s and 2s are coming in, and you know, we don't even know. There are all sorts of stories about, you know, fleets of tanks and everything. But in the middle of all this, he started talking about how Obama and Trump tried to warn the Europeans about depending so much on the Russians. Oh, yeah. And he put a post-production video saying that the reality is that Trump actually, he needed to correct himself. Trump just echoed Obama's points, but he did it in such an angry and childish way that the Europeans couldn't possibly listen to. I turned it off. There were 20 minutes, didn't want to hear anymore, because as I remember, and you remember, Obama said the Russians were our buddies. He didn't try to warn anybody. This is a lie. This
the
is a fact.
1980s are calling for their bullshit back.
No,
I'll have you know, Russians are not our enemy or our adversary. They are our partners.
Yeah. So this is a British guy who's blind and deaf to reality. He's got to say his anti-Trump shtick because he's no more informed about Trump than those women are about Islam. In a very real sense, he's cosplaying as a historian because
he isn't.
If you let your personal emotions, I mean, what I always hate is people giving you a disclaimer before they, well, not that I'm a fan of Trump, but that sort of thing. Because it reminds me of people saying, well, I don't approve of terrorism, but, and then, so it's so, I mean, here's a guy who's childish calling Trump childish. Trump is it's like, okay, did you hear the new big?
Remember when Trump went to speak to the General Assembly of the UN?
Yeah.
And he warned Europe.
Yeah.
In that podium, and he warned especially Germany that they were becoming too dependent on energy from Russia.
Yeah, was that
that they would be held to play, and that Obama laughed at him,
of course,
and everybody else did too, and he was right. And this so-called historian, this cosplaying historian that you mentioned, ought to go on his knees to Mar-a-Lago begging for forgiveness for being an idiot.
Well, see, it's amazing to me. Okay, you probably heard that the new O'Keefe video is some loudmouth alleged CIA agent telling some girl on the first date that the CIA withheld intelligence from Trump. And this is the best, the great new scandal. Can you think of any foreign policy decision that Trump made that would have been impacted by the CIA withholding intelligence? I can't.
No. As a matter of fact, I cannot recall the policy of any president since I have memory that would have.
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, this guy was an idiot. I don't believe for a second he was any kind of higher up in the CIA. He was like he was a blabbermouth who was like trying to impress his date. And, I don't even...
Pompeo was withholding information from Trump.
Mike Pompeo.
Mike Pompeo. And Richard Grenell. Richard Grenell definitely was withholding information.
See,
where do these idiots come from?
I don't know. It's again, okay, there's this notion that Trump, I mean, here's O'Keefe saying this. O'Keefe is implying that Trump is an idiot who depended entirely on the CIA. For one thing, Trump depended more on the DIA than the CIA. And for another thing, the CIA has not gotten anything right in its entire career. I mean, it's and okay, there are like the special operations group that these are all recruited from the U.S. military special forces, but there's only 150 of them. And
I have one question for you. How many times did they actually try to kill Castro?
Oh, well, the CIA, I mean, they didn't. No, the CIA tried to hire the mafia to do it. And
no. But that's hiring the mafia is a question of how. I'm not suggesting that it's 600 times like the Cuban communists suggest, but I know there were a few plots, like the attempt to poison his drink at the Hilton Havana in '61. They actually did that.
Make his beard fall out.
Yeah, no, well, some poor fuck actually decided to take that beer for himself and didn't work well. But the thing is, Castro died of old age years after he instructed his doctors to sew his stomach to his throat as a cancer treatment. And doctors from Spain had to be flown in to try and patch him up. If the CIA had been even remotely efficient, that fucker would have never turned 40.
Well, think about it. The CIA, I mean, there are individual agents who, you know, parachuted in to work with the Hmong in Vietnam, that sort of thing. But, okay, I saw a video. They were using those, what the hell are they called? I think it's called an otter, a de Havilland otter. It's a short takeoff and landing plane. And these things were landing on the top of mountains that were like that, and then they were taking off in like 6 feet.
My cousin Jimmy, James Lee Kaplan, anybody who wants to look at it, he was a colonel in the Maine Air National Guard, and he was one of those pilots. He could land a stalled aircraft uphill on a freaking mountain.
Yeah, so in the newsreel, it showed a de Havilland otter landing, and all these Hmong tribesmen were coming in, and mingling among them was an old white man wearing a wife beater T-shirt. He had horn rim Barry Goldwater glasses, and he had a big cigar. And this was a CIA agent.
Yeah.
This was a guy who was a member of the OSS back in World War II. So this guy knew what he was doing. But okay, I've read the transcript of the meeting in which. Okay, it's not a transcript. It's a summation of the meeting in which they were going to hire the mafia, and they said they needed someone to carry out gangster type action. And it's like, this was in the late 50s. And
they fucked up everything. They fucked up Cuba. They fucked up Chile. They fucked up Guatemala. They fucked up in Europe so many times I lost count. In the Middle East, whatever they touched turned to shit.
They thought they could hire middle-aged, chain-smoking psychopaths to act as James Bond. And it's like, no. So whoever this guy is on the James O'Keefe video, I mean, this is still Hollywood. This is
and by the way, who the fuck is he?
I don't know. I've never heard of him. He's got an Arab
an old analyst.
He's got an Iranian first and last name and an Anglo middle name, and he was saying, you know, I'm in the CIA and the NSA, and he was claiming that they withheld information from Trump because he's an idiot. Well, I mean, okay, Brennan just came out and said that he hopes that after Trump is made the nominee, that they withhold sensitive means and methods. He's claiming that Trump is a leaker. Trump leaks shit. Biden.
But Brennan did.
And also Biden. Remember the killing of Bin Laden? Biden identified the unit the day after, and then they were set up and
he put a target on their foreheads.
They were set up and ambushed in Afghanistan. So it's I mean, Brennan cosplays as an intelligence officer. He's
you know what Brennan is? One of these little fuckers in colleges today with Intifada revolution shit. He was the same thing in the 70s, and he was actually there is a public record of him voting for president for the candidate of the Communist Party. One of 4 people who did so.
Yeah, so hell, let's make him the head of the CIA. What can it hurt? Also, he also refers in public to Jerusalem as Al-Quds, which is more cosplay.
Well, more cosplay because when he was in the CIA, before Obama tapped him as a director of the CIA, he was in the Middle East, and he was so deep into Islamists' assholes that he became one of them.
Sure.
to the point that there are a lot of rumors out there. I'm not going to repeat them. That are most patently false, but that give you an idea how close to his target he became.
Yeah, I mean, okay, a weak-minded person always goes native. Like everybody talks about the Stockholm syndrome. You have to be a weak-minded person to fall in love with your captor. And this whole notion that I mean, okay, Californians, the ones who are left here, they've all got Stockholm syndrome. They're all in love with Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is still saying California is the greatest state in the union, as we've decriminalized all crime. Today, the LA County Sheriff's Department found a warehouse that was full of stolen goods that illegals had stolen and stocked here, and from deodorants to aspirin to just everything, so they could sell them at a massive discount on the street to other illegals. And this is rampant. This is why they come here, because they can have entire gangs of illegals clean out a store and there are no consequences. And here's Gavin Newsom, who is deeply loved by this population, and they're taking it. They'll take whatever is dished out to them here. They're weak-minded. These are weak-minded people here. So
I was just thinking, what is it now? Half of the homeless in the U.S. are in California.
Yeah, and a third of the country.
California lost 24 billion.
Yeah,
and they don't know how they spent it to end. By the way, 24 billion.
Well, they keep building.
That is an apartment for each person homeless in California.
Yeah, they keep building apartment buildings for them, and of course these fuckers don't move in because they're all drug addicts, they're all crazy, and they love the street life. So, there's a tiny handful of people who are legitimately homeless because they lost their house or whatever, but their period of homelessness is like this long.
And 24 billion is what they don't know how they spent. There is another 24 billion out there that they do know how they spent.
Well,
how many people, how many Democrats are living off of the homelessness teat?
Well, it's known in this state as the homeless industrial complex because they have a vested interest in keeping homelessness up. Oh, and just to add to the statistics, one third of the nation's welfare cases are in California.
Right. It's a fucking third world country.
It is a third world country. Everyone's on the dole, and they hate Trump. They don't know why. You have the wealthy buying their way into university so that their useless kids can get a degree that everybody used to think was like a key to.
Actually, so that the worthless children can go to UCLA and destroy one of the most beautiful buildings in education ever built.
Yeah. No, it's
what they did to the UCLA campus. I mean, it looks like Dresden after the Allied bombing.
But see, I blame the universities. They're allowing this to happen.
They do. Yeah.
That this goes back to the allegory of the frog and the scorpion. The scorpion stings the frog. They're both going to die. And the frog asks with his last dying breath, "Why did you sting me?" And he says, "Because that's what scorpions do." And rioters riot, protesters protest violently. It's up to the schools to do something about it. If they don't, then it's all on their heads.
The schools could have stopped it before it started.
Of course.
And by the way, don't get me started with the faculty joining them, because that's beyond. How can anybody join these savages in orgies against the school and its property,
well,
and remain tenured professors there?
Well, that the president of Harvard lied her way into her job, and they fired her, but then they gave her a higher paying job in the same institution. So she was cosplaying. She had the requisite short hair and the glasses, so she looked like a black female intellectual. And she's no such thing. She's pretending. And
By the way, the woman whose work she pilfered is now suing her.
as well she should.
As well she should, and best of luck to her. That is, incidentally, a wonderful black woman who happens to be a real scholar, whose work is not stolen by her, but from her.
Yeah. No, and see, all of this is cosplay, and the universities are cosplaying as institutions of learning. They're not anymore.
Not for a long while.
No, and the Ivy League schools. I remember when the Operation Iraqi Freedom started. They had like some idiot president of the Students' Organization of Harvard claiming that we were firebombing Baghdad. Now, this guy believed with all his soul that was what was happening. And as you remember...
And fortunately for him, all of the bombing of Baghdad was being filmed in real time. Actually, it was being broadcast in real time. It was the first time ever of a war being broadcast in real time. Remember?
They were using smart munitions that would target an individual building.
Yeah.
They were firebombing. I mean, we haven't used area bombing since World War II. Actually, okay,
maybe in Vietnam a little bit.
Yeah, but okay, that wasn't. We bombed like railroad yards and things like that.
Yes. And the jungle. We don't like fighting in the jungle, so we level the jungle and then we fight in the prairie.
Yeah, so we haven't area bombed. I mean, a B-2 Spirit bomber, it carries 80 smart munitions, 80 smart 500-pound JDAMs. So, each of those JDAMs has got, pre-programmed targets, and, it does a hell of a lot more damage than an area bombing. In World War II, we would have entire fleets of aircraft come in and bomb massively and miss the target because the technology wasn't there.
Weather, wind.
Exactly.
They had the wrong location. I mean, come on. But that was and what would they do? Reload and go back and bomb the real target.
Exactly. So
nobody anguished over this.
Well, all of this stuff is just so bizarre because you find out that all the Norman Baylor called them factoids, that's falsehoods that people believe as facts because they appeared in print. And the Vietnam War wasn't the Vietnam War that people think it was. 10% of all homeless people are Vietnam War veterans. That's a lie. That was never the case.
It was never the case at all.
Yeah, 2/3 of the combat soldiers were volunteers. The Viet Cong.
My cousins volunteered for five tours.
Yeah, the Viet Cong weren't peasants who ate rats and had rubber tire sandals. They were a well-armed, well-equipped, well-trained alternate. They were the communist version of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, but they were competent. And the North Vietnamese army was a regular army. They had everything we had. They had missiles, aircraft, tanks, heavy artillery. So
the only thing they didn't have is a great general with his hands tied behind his back because a stupid dwarf of a democratic president didn't want to upset the Chinese.
Well, and today it's our president who want to accept the Iranians, upset the Iranians or the Russians, and that's where the two world conflicts are centered.
If it had been up to MacArthur, there would be no North Korea.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, Harry Truman gets a lot of credit. Harry Truman was as incompetent as your average. He he stripped the Air Force down to nothing, and then he ordered them to go to war. And the guy in charge of the Air Force in the Far East said, "This is a shoestring Air Force. You're asking us to do things we can't do." And Harry was telling the public, "Oh, it's a police action, not a war." And because he committed to that, we were not allowed to use our most advanced weapons. And so
he put our troops under the command of a fucking Russian general.
And again, as happens in every single American war, troops had to die because the person giving the orders was thinking only of politics and not American national security or the lives of the troops. When the Chinese came in, Harry ordered 3 atomic bombs dropped on them, and he was told that's going to kill United Nations.
Everybody else, yeah.
He said, I don't give a damn. But he was eventually talked out of it. And, it was just like we came this far from total disaster because Give 'em Hell Harry wasn't anything, really.
Yeah, but when MacArthur chased the Chinese to the border and wanted to keep the pursuit, he stopped them.
Yeah. Well, he fired him. He relieved him of command.
Yes. It's always the same shit. And we think that Biden does some things because he's brainless. He does it because he's a Democrat.
Yeah. No.
Speaking of cosplay, what do you think of budding revolutionaries in New York? My cousin was telling me of budding revolutionaries at Georgetown University that would take lunch breaks to go to a Michelin restaurant on M Street. Wonderful. By Emmons, Wisconsin. I've seen others in New York do the same thing. But we have this one that I'm sure you've seen. This is a revolutionary trying to avert a humanitarian crisis.
Oh, God. I know who you're talking about.
Well, of course you do.
What are the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request to fit food.
Did she actually say that the university was obligated to provide food to these vandals?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look at the guy behind her. He's wearing a belly shirt. Like he's a buffoon. He's a
buffoon. He by the looks of him, he wouldn't be hanged from a crane. He'd be thrown out of a building.
Yeah.
To allow it to be brought in, I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students.
It is a question of community and the obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Where the hell did they find this stupid?
Well, she's a nitwit. She is your garden variety leftist nitwit who's been trained how to use certain words, but as you can see in this interview, she makes a fool out of herself.
You know that she's a doctoral candidate.
Oh, of course.
She's working on her thesis.
She has to be. She has to be.
And her thesis is something like the aesthetic and beauty of poetry from a Marxian point of view. Yeah,
she's as Marxist as you are, as I am.
She doesn't know anything, but the point is, how can that be the subject of a doctorate in a real university?
I don't know, but why is the man behind her wearing the jeans jacket of a 12-year-old child?
Well, because we're all young at heart, you know, and he wants to show his navel.
Yeah, he wants to show his navel. He's a child. They're both children.
Now, this goes on for quite a bit more.
Yeah.
I think we just got enough because the rest is repetition. These 10
Well, what
seconds
happened
over
was
and over again.
they forced her to admit that the university was not blocking any food or water, and she wanted them to pledge that they wouldn't, and they were told that, this is ridiculous. This is like forcing someone to pledge not to murder his wife, and it's like, I'm not going to do that. I mean, well, okay, let me just talk for a minute while I look up something here.
Yeah, well, let me show everybody else this one. This is from another campus, an urgent request. Please uplift. If there are any restaurants in New York City that could cater dinner tonight for up to 400 students who have lost access to dining at Columbia, sure, they closed the fucking university, please DM. They have been organizing their own dinners all week. Plus, untenured faculty is trying to arrange meals. I mean, these fuckers go to war and forget to bring the boots. They go to occupy a university and forget that somewhere along the line they're going to have to eat something. And what is the solution? Well, let's go to the restaurant to cater. Catering.
Yeah, because
Catering.
the average citizen in Gaza living in a tent city, they get catering.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why they complain about it so much. What they have to do is pick up the phone and call Uber meals or something like that. Is there a restaurant in New York that can cater 400 meals for us tonight? Talk about spoiled little shits.
Well, have you noticed that Palestinians never wear keffiyehs like that?
Of course not. These people don't know a keffiyeh. By the way, many of them are not wearing Palestinian keffiyehs,
No,
and they don't know it.
no, they don't know it, and they're not wearing them correctly. For example, women are not supposed to wear a keffiyeh around their neck like that. That's revolutionary chic. It's childish.
Yes, it's for it's kind of like the Prada version of keffiyeh.
Yeah.
And then they go pray like as a Muslim with
Yeah.
the keffiyeh around the neck and the hair to the wind, showing their belly buttons. These people are beyond stupid.
Yeah, no, I mean they've learned nothing in their Ivy League college.
By the way, Debbie in the chat is saying that those who are asking for catering meals for 400, please make sure it's gluten-free and vegan.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean these are cartoon characters. This is another issue that really strikes me, is that everybody's a cartoon character now. Like everyone we see on the news and social media, they're cartoon characters. Like, they will never surprise you with something they say. They will never say something. You see them and you go, I know exactly what you're going to say at all times for the rest of your life, and they never disappoint you.
The first time that I participated in the taking over a school was in 1972, towards the end of 1972. I was not 13 yet. It was a technical school that I was attending. And the government was a military dictatorship. And the first thing they did was surround the building with the army. And eventually, after 3 days, they started shooting. Before we went, I remember I went with a couple of bags of canned goods, evaporated milk, canned ravioli, not evaporated milk, condensed milk.
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea was I'm gonna need calories, and and I better take them with me because there's not gonna be a place. And bottles of water, iodine to treat water if need be, because if need be, you're gonna drink your pee. These people are not 13 years old. They're in their 20s. Some of them are upset because they're missing graduation, and I was just about to get my college degree, and now, oh, woe me, I'm not going to have a graduation.
Well, this is absolute um, prima facie evidence that this is all cosplay. They're talking about community and being coddled and getting their food catered and all this shit. And at the same time, they're talking about, burn the bitch down and all. It's all pretend. It's all fake. And
By the way, we didn't destroy the school. Some of us were tasked with ensuring that if anybody started doing anything, he'd be stopped because that was our school.
well, have you noticed that? Okay, I remember when I lived in Texas. I lived in Texas from 1972 to 1975, and I remember there was a house on our road. We lived on a road that was considered very well to do, and we did we buy a house? Yeah, we bought a house, and somebody down the street, they had some financial problem and they abandoned their house. It was a really nice house, and I remember we found an open door. We went through this house, and we just marveled at how nice it was. Today, if you find an abandoned house, you bring all your buddies over and you smash it all to hell, and you film yourself doing it. And it's the same with the many abandoned office buildings and all of that. You destroy it, and this is the mindset now, is that you're just like a termite. You're just this mindless destroyer. And
I remember when I was a kid, we used to play in abandoned factories, and it was like a ghost town, but everything was as if the workers had left a day earlier, except a shitload more dust.
yeah,
Nobody destroyed anything.
no. When I lived in Norway, there was an island. There was a bridge that went over like four islands, and the second island was where they docked all these abandoned ocean liners. And we were able to get on board. They still had the gangplanks,
Yeah.
and everything was there. The lifeboats still had rations in it. I mean, just everything. And I took a can of canned water that I still have, but we didn't break anything. We just explored. It was like amazing. There was no power, so we brought flashlights, and it was just really amazing. It was a wonder, an abandoned ocean liner. Imagine that. And there was no need or urge to destroy anything. In fact, we wanted to preserve it. The only reason I took the can of water was because this lifeboat, the ropes had rotted, and the lifeboat had fallen on the deck, and the provisions had spilled, and they were all on the deck. So I just,
they're lost anyway.
yeah.
By,
So
by the way, bye bye, you boob. Remember, the link is right there to come over here. So if you don't, it's your problem. There we are. What the hell did I just do?
I don't know.
Well, I didn't. I know. I want to view in YouTube instead of remove YouTube. Very hard.